we starting?
Yeah.
All right. All right, we're starting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Brothers of the Serpent podcast. This is episode 35? 35. I got it right. It's episode 35. We are here in the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science. And we have a bunch of topics today, a lot of topics, not anything specific. So we're not really sure what we're going to do or how it's going to turn out. But, you know, it's typical Snakebros. We'll just wing it. We'll probably end up talking about a bunch of stuff that we didn't even think about.
Snakes with wings.
Those don't exist.
What?
Yeah. I remember that. I was saying that with Ivan Sanderson, like last week on the last show, that he mentioned the winged snakes from Indonesia or whatever. And then he...
Get out of my office.
Yeah. I think geologists like, this guy needs to be fired.
Oh, the winged serpent.
So let's, we got some news stuff. Let's hear about the booms. There's supposed to be an enormous boom.
Oh, yeah. I just ran across this story.
I love this phantom noises.
They're calling it overnight booms.
Yeah. Overnight booms.
Overnight boom investigated. So far, a mystery. So, Wheat Ridge, Colorado, CBS 4. Wheat Ridge police say they have a true mystery on their hands. Investigators in the Denver suburb have received dozens of reports of a loud boom happening overnight. Neighbors have said the noise, which some describe as an explosion or gunshot, only happens once around 3 a.m., typically over the weekend. The noise, according to reports, only happens once, but has been occurring for months now.
Okay, so it's reoccurring. Okay.
Yeah. And then they have some testimonials. I was dead asleep, and what was that? And then I'm back asleep. Now it seems like even more of a mystery. You can hear it a ways away, but it's loud enough to wake me up. No one can figure out where it's coming from, and the local prison guards also don't know where it's coming from. But I just threw that in there.
Yeah.
But it just occurred to me that it's like 3 a.m. every night, like the guy's going down in his tunnel.
Yeah. Oh, we don't know what that is. Are there old mines? There's mines in Colorado. I mean, like,
yeah, I don't know.
Somebody's blasting.
Police say they don't know where the noise is coming from. Witnesses have reported it online, but have not called 911, almost 9/11, when it happens. So there's not a good record of when it occurs. The noise, some speculate, could be a malfunctioning electrical transformer or a homeowner firing a gun. Some neighbors say they worry the noise is something not so easily explained. But yeah, it's obviously not someone firing a gun.
Right.
Because people would be calling 911 saying, someone's firing a gun at 3 a.m.
Shooting. Yeah. Yeah. And like when you have widespread reports from people of the same noise, that's not a gun. I mean, unless it's a really big gun. I mean, like the ones that are in...
Yeah, but a gun is not a boom so much as a bang.
Right.
I mean, it's not... A boom to me is like a deep noise.
Yeah, so think cannon fire.
Yeah, we used to live near a Vulcan materials quarry, and you would hear them blasting sometimes during the day.
That was a boom.
That was a boom. Shit would rattle.
Yeah, it would shake the house.
But was definitely not a gunshot. Like, gunshots from a distance are high-pitched.
Yeah.
They're not deep.
Well, I remember when we worked at Camp Bullis, they would sometimes be doing exercises, and like you'd hear all these high pitched, but there would be these
machine gun shots.
Yeah, but then you hear this when they were doing something else, shooting something larger. I don't know.
Yeah, or doing they were doing drills on like IEDs and shit.
Yeah, and simulated
roadside
artillery.
IEDs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those were actual booms.
Yeah.
They were explosions. They weren't gunfire.
Yeah. But it's also interesting, like in North Carolina, they have had this recurring phenomenon. And this has been recorded for over 100 years there, but it's not as regular as this. But they call them the Seneca guns, because the initial people initially associated. It's North Carolina on the coast.
Okay.
Right, and so they call them the Seneca guns because to the people there, they sounded like naval ship fire,
like heavy artillery fire.
But
that's not that's all I'm trying to say is that sound.
Yeah, it's not a
distinct.
gun.
It's not gunfire.
Right.
Unless you're just saying
not small arms. It's not small arms. It could be gunfire, but it's just a really big.
It's
gun.
a 9-inch gun. Okay.
Yeah.
That's basically a bomb in a barrel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a torpedo. And yeah. Yep. And so, I don't know. I've been fascinated by the sky sounds for a long time. Like, what do you think about the ones that sound like horns? You know, people are like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Because it's like, you know, and this coming out of the sky and shit. The first time I watched those, I was like, all right, that's got to be fake. But I don't know now. Like, some of them I'm sure are fake, but there are enough of them with varied tones. Like the fake ones, people were basically taking the sound from the newest version of War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Right, because it made this crazy horn sound and then this bit bassy, you know, and they were taking that and just recording video of outside their house and then putting that sound into you know, afterwards, the post production. But there are ones that are not like that are crazy. And then so I guess we talked about this, like about it being a blade, some kind of blade scraping along.
Well,
right?
you played one that sounded to me like it. Yeah, because it was real like.
Yeah, exactly. It sounded like something scraping. Yeah.
I was like, it sounds like somebody's running some big machine with a blade and they're scraping along a concrete slab or something, cleaning off, you know.
Yeah.
Like a materials stockyard that has like the big, massive concrete bins that you put different materials in.
Yeah.
And if you're scraping on that with a fucking blade, sometimes it resonates. Like when you're moving a chair across the floor.
Yeah.
You could move the chair and it's silent, but then you might just, you know, strike a harmonic of the chair and it's whoa.
Yeah. Like,
and once you get it going, it's hard to make it stop.
Right. Like Will Smith dragging the table in Men in Black, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You want to get in on this?
Yeah, exactly. Once it gets going, it's
yeah, you can't stop it.
It's already, it's like you've hit that resonant frequency and
yeah. But again, the mystery with that is the ridiculously widespread number of people that hear it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I was only looking at a video and hearing it and saying, well, that sounds like it could be something like this.
Yeah.
But I think that, I mean, fuck, dude, we have no idea like what all of the, you know, the things going on with the planet itself, like as a whole.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving around in the solar system and shit.
Yeah.
Can do. Like, I mean, we're basically like, we're being hit by solar winds, which are vibrating shit, and we have vibrating shit going on in the interior of the planet, and you know, occasionally all of those, you know, quote unquote chairs being dragged along floors might result in a really loud noise.
Yeah, massive resonance. Yeah.
So I don't know, but it could be coming from another universe.
It could.
I just typically with that kind of stuff, well, it's making sound, so I'm trying to figure out like what physical thing could be causing it.
Like, you know about skyquakes or sunquakes, like this is not an accepted thing, but it's a becoming a more accepted hypothesis that people need to test still. But the idea that solar influence onto the magnetosphere. Now, so like the magnetosphere is basically the shell of the Earth's magnetic field, right? So the outer shell, like the part where the Earth's magnetic field is interacting with the sun's magnetic field, okay? Mm-hmm. And that creates kind of a discontinuity, a demarcation right there. So that they call that the magnetosphere. This shell. So they're like the Earth's magnetic field is constantly in interaction with the sun's, and like so the sun's basically can push on the Earth's magnetic field. And that magnetic field, theoretically, is being caused by the core, which means that it's directly connected to the core of the planet is directly connected to this magnetic field. Mm-hmm. So the sun can technically impart force onto the core of the planet.
Right. That makes sense.
Right? Okay, so you can have skyquakes.
But it's not a strong magnet, Russ. I mean, you can barely turn a compass needle.
Right. It's diffuse, but it's very big. So... and so if the sun
every time I read about that shit, but it's just a really weak force. Yeah. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Man. It's a fucking huge magnet.
Right. It's like define weak. Like
where you're standing.
Everywhere on the planet you can feel it. I don't think that's weak.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
You just can't get close to the source, but if you could, you'd fucking stick to it. Like, you know, like if you could get down there to the core, I'm sure it would be really fucking strong. Anyway, like So technically the sun can impart force on the core, which can then result in earthquakes,
resonances. Yeah,
right? So those
makes sense.
Yeah. So and in the same way,
what's causing the sun's magnetic field?
I think all of the plasma. I mean, that shit is highly magnetic.
Yeah. So a surface disturbance on the sun can shake up the magnetic field that's coming over here, and then it interacts with ours, and it starts shaking the fucking core.
Yeah, like a solar flare is basically that. You have a solar flare is a big loop of plasma that comes off the surface, and that loop is basically a magnetic field line. And if it twists around and crosses itself, it fucking breaks. You know, that's a solar flare.
Yeah. So the polarity of the field coming from the sun, is it changing all the time?
11 years. Every 11 years it flips.
So like it flips, and then we're getting, so like is our magnet oriented a specific way where like we have the North Pole and South Pole, so our magnet is pretty much in the same position.
Right. So every 11 years we're either oriented with or away from, like, or opposite.
Actually no, because it would be
we're tilted,
side.
We're tilted a little bit.
Yeah. So every year, like we're either the North Pole is tilted towards the magnet, which they could be opposing.
Yeah.
And then in the wintertime, the South Pole is pointed more towards the sun, so they could be together, like they're attracting each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think of the sun, it's going to be, its axis is straight up and down, no matter what, whether it's flipped or not. So let's say that its axis is straight up and down, and the north is the top, and the South Pole is the bottom. We're tilted a little bit. Right, but generally we're kind of in alignment if we're also north-south. But if the sun flips,
so it doesn't really matter.
If the sun flips around, no, it does matter, because when it flips around, then the fields are in conflict.
No, because I was thinking if you have two magnets, like cylindrical magnets, where the poles are at the top and bottom of each cylinder.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter which way you flip. You can make them positive and negative, or positive and positive up, like pointing upward, but they're still attracted to each other on the sides. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't.
Yeah. Are we? Do these work as cylindrical magnets? I don't know.
Well, it's the
cylinder
doesn't really matter, because I'm just pointing at the pole. The pole, like if you point the poles at each other and they're both negative, they're going to push away from each other.
Yeah,
they're both
opposed.
positive.
Yeah, I think the general idea, though, is not so much whether they're attracting or repelling each other, but that the fields are in conflict. Because you got the field line flow. The idea of it is that there's some kind of flow happening, right? And if the sun's north-south pole are opposite the Earth's north-south pole,
they should be attracting more.
Yeah, that there's something different there than when they're aligned with each other, right? That it isn't really clear what that would cause. Like I think it was something about. Like when they're aligned with each other, then we have less cosmic rays and fewer, but higher incidence of flares affecting us badly, because basically like the flares that come off the sun and the solar wind that come off the sun are already aligned with our magnetic field, and they can just kind of pass through it a lot easier. Whereas when they're in opposition, the Earth's magnetic field is a lot better at blocking the stuff from the sun because it's in opposition.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I guess because I had those magnets that I'm talking about, the cylinders, and when you put them on the sides, you can roll one around the other one. Yeah. But if you try to put them together on the ends, the poles have to be oriented properly, positive, negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
To make them stick. But on the side, since the poles are both vertical and they're side by side, they'll stick to each other anyway.
Yeah. That's true, yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you flip the other one over, it still sticks on the side.
Yeah, but you don't think there's any change at all?
No, there probably is. And I'm wondering if
hard to detect by hand, maybe.
I seem to remember when you roll it, it really wants to be, it would rather be in one position, but if you roll it, it kind of move around to the other side.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that sounds right.
But I don't know. Fucking magnets.
God damn it. How do they work? So, okay, this is another thing I've been wanting to ask you about this, because it's come up a couple of times, and you know a lot about induction and all that kind of stuff. So there are reports of people who have lots of metal fillings in their teeth or a metal plate in their head, and every once in a while they will, huh? What? Did you say something about mercury?
Fucking mercury fillings. Not killing people since the 40s.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
But it's deadly.
Yeah. So they have these fillings or a plate in their head or whatever, and sometimes they will hear music or talking or whatever coming. And my assumption, and a lot of other people are thinking like, well, they're picking up AM radio somehow. It's got to be AM.
I thought we talked about this.
But my question is, what is the mechanism for changing the induction of the signal into sound? Like how's that happening? Like, is it the interface between the metal and the biology somehow? Like where the metal is?
Yeah, because you have to filter out the carrier wave, right?
Yeah. And so like when your teeth, when this giant filling in your tooth starts playing fucking jazz from some AM station, okay, and it's obviously not gonna be good speaker, but you can hear it coming out of your mouth or whatever, and you can feel it. Like, what's happening there? Because I know that like the metal as a natural antenna of the radio wave is picking it up and it's inducting it. Well, where do we go from there to get the sound?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be electrical induction. I mean, it could be because the metal is a crystal too, so it could be actually resonating it.
Just purely resonating like.
But I don't understand how it can filter out the carrier wave. Like why they don't just get like static,
yeah,
or whatever. I don't know.
Well, is there a carrier wave in AM? AM is just
it's amplitude,
right. So it just the signal's getting stronger or weaker, but the frequency is staying the same. So, right, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, the frequency is the frequency of the carrier wave remains the same. It's a single wave, but it's the amplitude of that wave is being modulated. So you pick a frequency.
Yeah.
Whatever if it's 1200.
Right. Whereas
I'm just not picking that for any specific reason, but I'm just saying.
Whereas FM is like frequency modulation, so that's so that would be a lot harder for, like, you could imagine like a natural pickup, right? Like, because the frequency is changing, I would think that like that would not work with this situation where you got some metal plate that's picking up the signal. Like, I don't know. For some reason, I assume that AM, since it remains on the same frequency.
It makes more sense. Like, if their filling is the right size that matches the actual wave of the frequency of the carrier wave itself, then what you're suggesting is that would be easier to filter out. Whereas if it was a broad frequency spectrum, then they'd have to have like 88 teeth,
right,
of all different sizes.
Yeah, and they have to be exactly together. The right size. Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. But I don't. I guess what I'm saying is that because
you're saying that
the way we would normally do it is that you have the carrier wave frequency, and then the amplitude of the frequency is being modulated by the audio signal coming into the radio transmitter.
Right.
So like when we're talking, all the different frequencies, all the information of our voices are modulating the amplitude of a single wave.
Right, the power of it, yeah.
And so it's just like any other transducer. Like once you take out the carrier wave, you have the information that is all the frequencies and everything modulated into that wave.
So you can't do that with this setup. So that's what I'm saying. Like, what's happening is the mere fact of the amplification and deamplification, during silence parts, that itself is causing the filling or the tooth or the plate to vibrate enough to result in sound. That, you see what I'm saying? Like, my question is, what is the interface that is making the noise?
My point was that perhaps it's because normally what we would do is we would take the carrier wave out, and then we have electrical information,
right?
An electrical signal, and then we send that signal through an electromagnet, that moves a diaphragm.
Yeah. So you can't do that in this case.
Right. Well, so my point was that perhaps the tooth or the filling itself is actually resonating because it's crystalline too. So the actual induction of electricity into it can make it resonate.
Right.
Anyway.
So the carrier wave, it's resonating with the frequency of the carrier wave, and then the changes in amplitude are changing that resonance.
Are actually making the crystal kind of move. So
right.
There's a physical motion, not specifically induction of electrical currents, which need to go into the brain and then be turned into music somehow.
Right. No, because other people can hear the music too. You know, like the guy opens his mouth and people can hear the music.
Yeah, so it's going to it's like you can actually make a radio without
power.
without using electricity. But I mean, it does use electricity, but you don't need an external power source.
Yeah, the induction provides.
And then there's like there's all kinds of ways to do it. That, you know, with crystals, you can crystal is a natural transducer from electrical to
kinetic.
Yeah, sonic or whatever, you know, actual motion, kinetic motion.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man.
I was just reading
it's odd that it'd be loud, you know.
It's not loud, but it's loud enough. You know what I mean?
I mean, you can bite down onto something that's vibrating, it gets really fucking loud.
Right
even
in your
if you
head.
can't hear it.
Yeah.
If you can't hear it, but you bite down and clamp down.
Yeah. So, because I was reading this story, this guy he basically posted this. I was on Reddit, and he was in the Unexplained Mysteries, right, subreddit. And he was like, "So who can explain this?" And he talked about how he had an old house that he lived in for about a decade. That he was like, it was really old, and it had copper everywhere, copper pipes, copper gutters, copper. You know, everything was made out of copper. And then he was like, and we had some really badass lightning rods too, which was interesting. But he was like, on really calm days, when everything was really quiet, there was like jazz music coming from somewhere in the house, and we could never find it, right? And it was like, you know, he was like, we could never locate the source.
Fuck yeah.
But there was just like this quiet, you know, jazz.
Thank God it was that and not Tejano.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. Fucking give me jazz any day.
And like, so I replied to him and pointed out that people have gotten music from fillings and metal plates in their heads and shit like that. And that it's commonly sort of thought that they're picking up radio waves somehow, AM radio waves somehow. And so maybe his house was doing that with the copper.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally possible, I think. Especially, you know, when you're running copper or any pipe or whatever, you secure it to the wood, and a wood is an amplifier.
Right.
So it's basically you're turning it into a fucking musical instrument or
it's strapped to the wood or whatever, and there's tension in there. So if the copper starts vibrating, then all the wood does too, and then you got your speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's so many fucking ways that electromagnetic frequencies are being transduced into audio all the time. You know, we can't hear it necessarily because you're not biting it or you're not.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's always happening naturally. I mean, this is probably how we discovered it in the first place, right? Like,
yeah.
Why is this crystal fucking moving around on my table? I haven't touched it.
Okay, so now that here we go with the tangents. This reminds me of I was just reading. I've got this book called "The Disinformation Guide to Ancient Aliens, Lost Civilizations." Whoops, yada 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 yada.
Yeah, by so and so.
It's by a bunch of people. It's basically a collection of articles written by all the great.
Et al.
Yeah, et al. Yeah. Graham Hancock et al. It's got everybody in there. John Anthony West, which rest in peace, brother.
R.I.P. bro.
Yeah. I read that article by John Anthony West in that book the night before he passed, and like that was really, I don't know. For me, that was a synchronicity that was very moving because it was like, you know, it's the last word from him. And I'm like reading it the night before, and I'm like, okay, you know, give me the bobbleheads, bro. Let me have the bobbleheads and shit. And sure enough, it was in there. I was like, yes, striped toothpaste.
Yeah.
Anyway, in that they were talking about one of the articles was discussing the I can't even call it a hypothesis, but the idea that crystals, if excited by electricity in a certain way, the flexing, the piezoelectric flexing that happens when you put electricity into them, actually makes I don't know how to say it. Like it makes them seem to be affected less by gravity, or maybe their inertia drops or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that maybe this is one of the ways that the ancients were moving these enormous blocks. Like if you apply electricity directly to the block that's full of crystals.
With the Jed pillar.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be.
If you get a couple of Jed pillars.
Yeah, if you got some Jed pillars with invisible arms.
Yeah. And you wait until the sun disk comes up or goes down. You might have to wait until it goes down because a lot of times they did this shit at night.
You still have to read my translation of that Book of the Dead page.
And then you sing certain notes really loudly
Yeah.
with perfectly tuned horns,
Yep.
and you can move giant blocks.
So I think we should try it. Like, just put some DC leads onto a.
Well, so one of the things I've noticed is that when you vibrate something, I should probably describe this. So we have this electric motor. I'm not going to tell you why, but we put an offset weight on the motor, and it's a big fucking motor, and hook it up to AC power, and it starts going. And it's like you can't hold it.
Yeah.
But we secured it to this big board, and if the board wasn't secured, it appeared to defy gravity. I mean, it would float. The board is just like wow, and it just move, and you can. There's ways that it wants to move, and then other ways that it's like you're trying to make it go in one direction. It doesn't want to go that way. It wants to go this way or rotate this way or do whatever. It's so one of my ideas was if you had some device that could resonate a large block of stone, like find its resonant frequency,
get it vibrating,
get it going.
Yeah, then it would be like the electric football guys.
Yeah, exactly. But you could tweak the signal of the the vibrating motion.
Yeah.
Like say what we were talking about. Like you get the carrier wave, which is the wave that's the frequency that the stone wants to move at.
Right.
And you get that going. And say it's trying to go downhill, right?
Yeah.
It's vibrating and it's moving downhill. But then you start adding in some other frequencies or a wah, 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 like that. And you can change the motion of it and make it climb the hill.
Right. Or you have, because I thought you maybe you have multiple things mounted to the rock that input the vibration. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
so
about.
So they're all doing the same thing or whatever, but you increase the power to the one that's on the downhill side and it'll start pushing the whole thing uphill or whatever.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do it with, okay, so basically we're talking about the same thing. If you had one thing resonating the stone, you could put a frequency in there that makes this end of the stone move more. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're breaking it into harmonics or you're causing some third of it to break into thirds or whatever.
Yeah, and then it breaks. And you're like, God damn it.
Leave that one on the side of the mountain. Let's go get another one.
Yeah, this stupid rock broke. But
maybe the reason why some of these massive blocks are left on the side of the mountain is because while they were moving them, something changed inside the rock somewhere, and it just stopped working. And they're like, well, we
could sit here and try to tune the frequency back in, or we could just go get another
one.
Yeah, leave that one there.
Yeah,
just put that one down.
Yeah, just put it down. Walk away.
just put it down.
But I think motion, like vibration, does fascinating things. Like the Tesla was messing with this, with his
oscillation,
his harmonic oscillators, and it was a really simple reciprocating motor that he powered with air. It was pneumatic power.
Yeah, and used air springs and air.
It was just a single piston inside a cylinder moving back, and the piston moved back and forth. And the actual motion of the piston to one side opened an orifice that let the air out of the pressurized side, or basically, and it pushed the piston the other direction.
Yeah,
and it would just do this back and forth, and he could tune it, changing the frequencies, and he would just like mount them randomly on stuff and just fuck with it, and he got all kinds of crazy results.
Yep.
And like, I think like that bridge, Galloping Gertie.
Yeah.
The wind does this, right? This happens all the time. This kind of shit fucking happens all the time. So the idea that you can't move giant blocks with vibration or by blowing them with wind,
noise or whatever,
bullshit. Because like, look at Galloping Gertie, the
suspension bridge.
Yeah, it's a big suspension bridge, and there's like a wind. There's a storm happening, and the wind is just hauling ass through the gorge.
Yeah.
And it's like it's starting to do like a flute, like the air's coming and it's trying to go over the bridge, and then it pops underneath the bridge.
But it's also hitting all the cables and making them hum.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it's
so
like,
once it starts
yeah.
getting going, it just, it starts
Yeah.
moving bigger and bigger and bigger motions. And eventually the bridge came down. Like
Yeah.
it completely tore the bridge down with fucking just, it wasn't, it's not like the wind blowing a tree down because it's coming so fast from one direction. It destroyed the bridge because it got it resonating at its resonant frequency.
Right.
You can see it when you're watching the video. One side of the bridge over there is the road is tilted way to the left, and over here the bridge is tilted way to the right.
Yeah,
and they're oscillating back and forth.
Yeah,
that's a wave happening in the bridge. It's not that the bridge toppled over because the wind was really strong.
Right. It was basically making it hum like a guitar string.
Yeah,
and eventually the bridge.
But it's that's why I was describing like the flute, because when you blow in the air past the opening of the flute,
yeah,
the air goes over the hole, but then the hole becomes a vacuum and it sucks the air down into the hole, and then it becomes pressurized and it pushes the air back over top of the hole.
Right, like blowing across a Coke bottle or whatever. Like people are familiar with that. Like, woo,
that's what's happening at the tone that you're hearing. Whatever, like you're saying, on the bottle. That's the frequency that the air is going into the bottle, coming out of the bottle, going into the bottle, coming out.
Yeah.
Which is like
right,
250 hertz or something, 255 times a second.
You got to get your breath right in the right place, and you got to be making exactly the right speed. And it's not fast. If you blow real hard, it doesn't work. So she's like, when it goes, woo, that's what was happening with. So the wind that destroyed Galloping Gertie wasn't necessarily gale force either.
That's what I'm saying.
It was. It was like it was.
There was a guy driving. He was trying to drive across a bridge.
Yeah.
It obviously wasn't strong enough to blow his car off the road.
But he had to get out and bail because
so if you're watching the video and you're seeing the bridge go, you can figure out the resonant frequency of that bridge.
Yeah,
because it's so slow.
Right,
because the bridge is so huge. That you can time it. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and you can see the people standing there. The wind's blowing their hair or whatever, but it isn't like pushing them down. Because it's just making the whole thing resonate. So I agree that.
And those guys like try to debunk the Tesla thing. They're like, okay, Tesla said he could take down a bridge or whatever with this vibrating thing, so we'll build one, and they modify it.
Right.
And then they take it over and they put it on the bridge and they kind of get it going, and they fuck with it for a while, and then later they're like, you could never take this bridge down with this thing. But we kind of felt like the bridge vibrating. It's like, okay.
You guys didn't tune it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to find the resonant frequency. Like if anybody's ever walked into a room, like you're walking around downtown or whatever, and you walk into like a sort of a concrete area, and you can hear as you're talking that every once in a while you'll hear the entire room resonate. Mm-hmm. Like that's what Tesla was doing. If he would connect to a building, he's basically tuning it to look for that frequency where the whole freaking thing resonates to this frequency,
right.
And then you can really get it going.
And there's two other factors. There's the frequency, there's the amplitude, and then there's the duration.
Yeah.
So it's just like with a rubber band.
Time is an illusion.
Like you can take a rubber band and you can stretch it out and let it go and say that didn't break the rubber band.
Yeah.
It's not going to.
Right.
That's bullshit. It will break the rubber band if you keep doing it over and over and over and over and over for a period of time.
Or if you increase the amplitude and stretch it farther.
Right. So the guys that were debunking this idea that Tesla could do this they set their own parameters for what they were debunking, and it's like, okay, basically you debunked that you couldn't do it at the frequency and the amplitude and the duration that you picked to do it.
Yeah, it's classic debunkers that
So
they're like we disproved that. You're like, no, you just proved that what you tried didn't work.
Right. It's just like that guy's whatever the dude that has the
$1 million prize.
Yeah.
It's like the Randy Foundation.
He sets parameters that he knows are not going to be met.
Right.
And that's what he's disproving, is that you can't meet his parameters.
Right.
It doesn't mean what he's trying to say it means.
Right.
Which is that there is no
what everybody said. Yeah, like, well, how come nobody's taken the $1 million prize yet? Because it's a trick on you. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
just like
Mythbusters.
Like the wine glass thing, like the fat lady singing. I don't know if she's fat, but she's singing at the wine glass and it breaks. The reason why you have to have an opera singer is because she can hold a note for a long period of time and really loud.
Right.
And she has good pitch, so she can pick the note that the wine glass resonates at.
Right, and it was high pitched too.
Right, so there's all three of those things. Like the reason why you can't do it is because you can't sing as loud as that lady,
Or as long.
or as high, or as long.
Right.
So it's all three factors.
So basically what the Mythbusters guys were doing was like taking the wine glass and going, well, that didn't break it. That
yeah,
can't
but
work.
I felt it vibrate a little bit. And so what I'm saying is like the fact that you felt the bridge vibrate proves that it's possible to do that.
Exactly.
Because what is a vibration? It's like you're moving the fucking bridge. So
Yeah.
if you went out there with a bomb and you put a bomb on there, what the bomb is a really loud noise at a whole shitload of frequencies, just like for a long enough period to knock some rocks off of whatever you're putting it next to.
Yeah, it's one pulse that has enough amplitude to blow some shit up.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's like a range of frequencies. So
Yeah.
it's it's a broad band of frequencies. So it blows up rocks. So if you can put dynamite on a bridge, you are also proving that you can break the bridge with a fucking device at a single frequency at a high enough amplitude.
That's right.
For a long enough duration.
That's right.
Because that's exactly what the bomb is doing.
That's right. And with that, I think we have.
No, I want to fucking talk about this more.
I think we have. We've gone for long enough at a high enough amplitude to end this session of this segment. Yep. So we are going to take a quick break and come back and blow up some more shit.
We're going to destroy this segment with snakes. So I just realized what I'm going to do the next time I'm at a pyramid. I'm going to bite it.
Just so you can hear it?
Yeah, just so I can see if whatever it's doing. Welcome back, folks.
Bring Kamak with you.
Brothers of the Serpent podcast. Here in the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science. Hailing from the old bottom of the sea.
The old bottom of the sea. From the bucket.
Yep, I'm gonna bite that fucking pyramid, man.
All right, cool. I think
I'm
that'll
gonna get into the king's chamber and go up to that
bite the
that
sarcophagus
thing and just
box.
gonna bite that box. And it's gonna tell me
why
all of the ancient knowledge.
Yeah,
It's just gonna be like put it into my brain. Direct transfer.
Yeah. Welcome to Pyramid Bite Interface.
To learn all of the ancient knowledge, bite left.
Yeah.
To choose a category, bite right.
For English, bite 0. All right.
Yeah, or it'll just teach me how to dance.
Yeah.
like all the guys are doing in all of the carvings everywhere in Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing.
They're dancing.
Yeah. They're all dancing.
It's probably rain dance.
Yeah, because
they
all have fruit and shit.
Yeah,
in the desert.
They're in the desert. Clearly, they're doing a rain dance.
Yeah.
Now we know the source of the Nile floods.
Yep. And the jet pillar is just like the fucking lights. They're like, boom, lasers.
Yeah.
What up?
Yeah, party. Woo, rain dance.
Yep. And they all wearing hats. It's just like if you go to a rave, if you depicted a rave on stone,
It'd probably look like
thousands of years in the future, they'd be like, yeah, look at them. They all have these weird pacifiers and all these strange necklaces.
Yeah.
And then there's the one guy that everybody's looking at, and there's light coming out around him and everything, and he's got these weird things on his
Yeah,
head.
clearly that's the god. No,
And
that's the DJ.
Yeah, and that's right. They're all bringing offerings.
So now we know that Inky and Inlo, they were DJs.
Yeah, that's right.
They were just the guys that were like doing the music for the party.
Dimmy jockeys.
That's right, demi jockeys. Anu jockeys.
The Anu jockey. The Anu jockeys are coming.
That's why it was all about frequency and shit.
Yep. Yep. And the pyramids were just, they were just like the disco ball.
Yeah. Yep. sparkly.
Yeah, the big sparkly thing you dance.
So
around.
speaking of the pyramids, I was reading this account. I'll go ahead and do this real quick.
We get to talk about pyramids.
Yeah,
now.
we're still talking about pyramids. So the you guys know about the scan pyramids project that's going on right now with the muon scans, and they found the possible new chamber, which they're going to send they're going to send a blimp drone into blimp drone.
Yeah, a little tiny blimp drone.
Yeah. Not fiber optics, Brett.
Yeah.
That's totally 90s. Blimp drones.
Yeah, and it's going to say "Great Year" on the side of it.
It's a great year blimp drone LiDAR. So this same kind of test was done a long time ago. I think, I'm not sure exactly on the date, but it was like 60s, 50s, 60s or whatever. But it was with cosmic ray particles. So it was the same idea. Like you have these cosmic.
I thought cosmic rays back then were just like a theory. Like I didn't know that they.
Well, they were. I mean, like they may not have known what they were caused from, but the effects are clear. Like once it hits the upper atmosphere, it causes.
So they were detecting shit.
This enormous chain reaction. Which is why they were called cosmic rays. It was a misnomer. It's not a ray.
Yeah, I guess that's true because I think even Tesla was.
Yeah, he talked about them.
Theorizing about them.
Yeah, like they impact the upper atmosphere and they cause this enormous chain reaction all the way down to the surface.
Yeah. Basically, it's a big
Christmas tree.
I was going to say it's a quantum splash.
Right. Yeah. It's like a multiple car pileup in the quantum realm. Right. Yeah. Some asshole is coming in his Maserati going 280 miles an hour on the Autobahn, and then he hits the city limits and doesn't slow down. And just like causes this enormous pileup.
Yeah.
All the way down to the surface. So like they were detecting that, and some of those particles will pass through. They're interject enough to pass through all the material of the pyramid to the center, just like the muons.
Yeah.
So they were trying to do that. They were doing a scan similar to what the scan pyramids are doing with the muons, but with cosmic ray particles. And their detector was recording directly. Right now, what they're doing is using kind of a type of film. So they just set it out there and let it develop. What they were doing back then was they had a detector, like some kind of eye that was looking for this, and then it would just record what it saw to a magnetic tape drive, which is what they used for storage back then. What was interesting to me about this is that the project failed because something about the pyramid itself was scrambling the magnetic tapes over time.
Yeah. Either that, or it was encoding something on the magnetic tapes.
Right. It was trying to record.
It was like, holy shit, they finally brought magnetic tapes. Hey, guys.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're trying to record, but check this out.
Cosmic ray bullshit. Look at all this ancient knowledge. And they're like, wow, these are scrambled, and they throw them away. It's like, no, this is the knowledge of Enoch. Nope. We just want cosmic ray graphs. So that project failed, and I thought that was really interesting because like the actual scientist who was running the computer, they had a big IBM out there or whatever, and he's running it, and he said something about some property of the pyramid that we don't understand is scrambling the magnetic tape, like making them into gibberish, basically.
Yeah, noise.
Yeah.
So with magnetic tape, I don't know if all of you are familiar with how that works, but it's basically like the diagrams that I've seen are like these little lines, like imagine like a bunch of pills, right? Pills, all on a strip, and they're all facing the same way, like a bunch of cars on a road, all pointing the same direction. And then that's like a brand new tape. And then when you start to record stuff on the magnetic head is basically an electromagnet that's pulsing based on whatever input signal you have. And that, as the tape is running by the magnetic head, all of those little magnetic pills that are all pointing straight get changed in different directions based on the frequency pulse of the magnet on the tape head, so that you have this pattern, and it doesn't really matter, like the pattern is created by the tape head and then the magnet on the tape head, and then when you go to play it back, it basically does the opposite. You take the electrical current off of the tape head, so you're no longer putting an electrical current into the tape head, and then you run the strip by it, and the tape head is now the receiver of the magnets on the tape. And then it's a tiny, tiny, extremely low voltage signal, and you can amplify that's coming off of the electromagnet on the tape head, and you get back what was put in.
Yeah.
So an interesting thing, like in recording in studios, like they still use today the 2-inch tape machines and stuff. It's basically like a massive reel of tape that's 2 inches wide, as opposed to like the cassette tapes that we have that are 3/16 or an eighth of an inch or whatever, eighth of an inch wide or whatever they are. So
it's 2 inches wide because they can put a lot of tracks on there at once.
Yeah, you can put there 24 tracks, and then they run the reels like really fast. So the faster you move it, the more high definition your recording is.
Yeah. Because you have more little pills per
more
second.
little pills. Yeah, more pills per second.
That's right. Grabbing pills.
PPS.
Pills per second.
So there's this thing called tape compression. And when you first record onto the tape, the all the little pills are like moved to the maximum, articulation or whatever that they're going to be after the recording.
Yeah.
But each one of the little pills has, their own field. So all their fields are being disoriented. They used to all be in a line, and now they're all so they're kind of pushing and pulling on each other in all these different ways after you first record. So the idea of natural tape compression was that after you recorded, you at least let the tape rest for 15 minutes before you bounce off of it. Because it will
kind of smooths it out.
Yeah, it will smooth it out. You'll get rid of some harsh tones, and all this, these little artifacts in there will kind of the pills will all be pulling on each other, and they'll all kind of try to get.
It's like a normalization. Yeah,
yeah,
it's cool.
Tries to bring them back. And so if there's like some anomaly that was recorded in there or like a really high frequency, and there's like a line of pills that are all just way out of whack, they'll all kind of over the 15 minutes sort of be pulled a little bit straighter.
Yeah.
And so it'll compress that. So it's interesting to think that it would be a great experiment. And if I ever go to the pyramid, right after I bite it,
to bring a magnetic tape with you.
Yeah, buy a big ass reel of fucking magnetic tape, and just put that would be badass to like put the machine in there, and don't put any input on it, or you could just stretch it out.
Well, I mean,
just run the reel.
Probably wouldn't be able to do anything like that, but you might be able to walk in with a tape cassette in your pocket and just see if it affects it.
So this is making me think though how to do it right, because if the tape is in a reel, it's all rolled up. It's not going to work.
Well, that's what it was doing to these, because they were reels of tape, and he'd grab another reel and put it in there and show that it was like totally scrambled.
That's what I'm saying. When it's all bundled up next to each other. So the way we record is we take just one strip of the tape.
You mean if something actually is trying to be recorded? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, okay, because if you just put a whole roll, like if you just took a tape where all the tapes rolled up,
and then ran a magnet,
and then you put a magnet on there and spoke into a microphone, and then the magnet was
that wouldn't work.
It would just scramble it.
Yeah.
What you need is the tape moving past. So what would be interesting is to build a device, like make a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
In a strip that runs into the pyramid.
Yeah.
And out.
Yep.
And then you run the tape in there, and when it gets inside, there's a section where it's not in the Faraday cage, and the tape continues to run through the pyramid and back out into the reel outside.
Yeah.
And you're actually recording on the, as the strip passes the open area inside with no Faraday cage, what the fuck is going on with the magnetic situation in there.
And then you play it back and you hear "Walk Like an Egyptian."
But what if it's something going on with the Earth, like something?
Yeah, the idea is that they were built at power points. Like this is another one of the articles I was reading in that book, the Disinformation Guide, that he was talking about how the megalith, the Paleolithic megalithic culture, the one that precedes all writing, that precedes the Neolithic guys, right? They were the ones that initially found these power places on the planet that have something to do with subtle Earth energies, and they would set up menhirs like single standing stones or stone circles or whatever, and then like over time, as time passed, the cultures that came after them continued to venerate these places, even though they may have forgotten why.
Yeah.
Right. So chapels, cathedrals, and all these ancient places like temples, all this stuff are built on these very old vortices, I guess would be the word of earth energies. And so the pyramids are definitely on those. The whole Giza Plateau is one, probably.
That's badass. What are the ley lines?
Yeah, ley lines.
What do you know about those?
I know that they were initially discovered because of that like multiple ancient places or places of worship or power, or like places where temples or cathedrals or very ancient spots were, or places with standing stones or whatever, or dolmens, were on these contiguous lines. They were clearly on some kind of grid. Okay, not literally a grid, but they were aligned with each other. Like you would find a whole bunch of them in a line, and they would usually coincide with with earth lines. Like, so if you take the earth and you put a grid on it, you got the north south lines and the east west ones, right? So the ley lines are following these sometimes, but not always, because the earth energies don't always follow those lines, and it seems to be triangles. I'm not sure, but that was the initial thing, is somebody who was just looking at the alignments of all these ancient places, mostly in England, okay? But after he wrote a book about it, he was like, look at how these places are all aligned with each other.
Like, look at how all these structures lay in these lines.
Yeah. Well, the people started to look all around the world, and they started to see, like, there's the classic, the 33rd parallel. Like,
yeah.
I mean, you can follow that one all the way around the planet, and it's got tons and tons of sites.
So what is it? Like, what? Okay, so I seem to remember that.
Well, people say that they can follow them with dowsing.
But I seem to remember that the lines were initially like, oh, that's bullshit. It's a bunch of hocus pocus. But then they eventually found out, wait a minute, this is real. Like something like physicists are like, yeah, there are these lines. And
yeah, well, some, not all of them. Like,
but what are they? Like, no one knows.
Yeah,
so it's not necessarily magnetic or
the term is telluric current, which basically just means earth energy.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, but it isn't really clear what it is. But I have found, like, an experiment that I did, right, was like you can, like, there will be places of telluric current, like, located in very old rock formations, okay? And I found that I could take capacitors that are completely discharged and set them out on old rock formations out here where we live, and give them a couple of days, and I go back out there and grab them, and they're charged, okay, just from sitting there. Right. So this is a function of the telluric current. It's charging the capacitor over time. It's a very slow charge, but it works.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they are. I mean, like, so ley lines and telluric currents are associated, and somehow these ancients were sensitive to it or whatever. But people that do dowsing say that they can follow them. So you can follow these ley lines with the dowsing rod. And so people have done that too. Like they'll get out there and just, you start from a known ancient place, right, and sort of start dowsing around it until you find a path of power, and you start following that, and eventually it will lead you to another temple / cairn, whatever.
Man,
so
the guys in Guatemala obviously didn't get the memo.
What?
They've been fucking digging around there for 15 years and didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
they could just douse and find all that shit.
Yeah, well,
they had to wait for LiDAR to be invented.
Yeah, well, most conventional mainstream archaeologists think dowsing is bullshit. Which is crazy, because I'm like, our well was located and dug by people. Like the well company comes out here. And they're a totally legit company, and they got all the equipment. But the first thing they do is get a guy out there with dowsing rods to walk around to figure out where to put the well. Mm-hmm. They call him a water witcher. It's witching water.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, that's a handy skill to have if you're, if you're a Paleolithic human and you're kind of wandering around and you need to find a source of water, to be able to like grab a couple sticks. Mm-hmm. And somehow those are, I don't know, like I've wondered if dowsing rods are the source of like the idea of magic wands. You know, like where do you get this idea that like you do magic by grabbing a stick and waving it around, and you know, like well, that's what dowsers do. They grab some sticks and they kind of walk around with them, and you know, they wave around. And I tried it, and it kind of works. Like you, after the dowser did his thing or whatever, I was like, can I try that? And you kind of walk, and they'll cross, you know, and you're like, wow, I don't think I'm doing that. You know, It feels like they're doing it. But I don't know. I have no idea how all that shit works. And people talk about how, well, you know, it's because water is flowing and it causes some kind of... But that's not true, because people can dowse remotely by using maps and a fucking pendulum, right? Like there are some dowsers who are really badass. They don't have to go there. They just get a map of the area and they get their pendulum and then swinging back and forth, and they'll dowse for shit on the map.
Yeah, see, that I'm skeptical about for sure.
It fucking works, though. I mean, of course there are charlatans, but I'm saying it works. Like using pendulums in dowsing is a known thing. There was actually, I was reading about how like so in Europe, if you're following these ley lines, and they'll be marked with these standing stones, you know, just small ones, like a single marker or whatever. But the markers will have these symbols or designs carved into them, and people have speculated that the designs have something to do with that the markers on the stones, the markings on the stones, are describing or labeling the type of energy or whatever of the line that you're following, using a symbology that, like, similar to what we use in electricity today. We have all these different symbols that mean different types of electricity or whatever, or different ways it changes, except that they were speculating that these designs were based on how a pendulum will swing over that ley line, right? So you get the spiral and you get the weird, all these different patterns and shit, and they would just draw that onto there. And so any Paleolithic guy who knew about this system going along, he would see those markings and know, okay, that means the power here is like this and it would affect a pendulum like that.
Yeah.
And then know what it meant. I don't know what it means, but...
That's cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
So the reason why I went to the...
Bless you.
Excuse me. The reason why I went to the ley lines, what you were talking about before, with all the... I guess... I thought that the ley lines were a proven thing now, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, which part do you mean is proven?
Like that they're actually distinct, and there are these lines that exist of some weird something going on with Earth.
But I would say that mainstream people think that they're lines in terms of alignments of ancient places, not so much power.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that they were like legit in terms of energy or something.
Well, they are, forces. But they are, but that's not nearly as accepted as.
That's what I meant. That it was. In other words, I was thinking that the existence of these lines of force or whatever were proven scientifically now, where they used to be sort of a myth, and then eventually they are proven. It's sort of like archaeoastronomy. Okay, there are plenty of mainstream archaeologists. Yeah, I was thinking that it had nothing to do with ancient sites. It was strictly.
Yeah. So I'm saying like archaeoastronomy, like it's now been proven for decades, and yet there are plenty of mainstream people who still think it's bullshit, right? Because it's just too far outside their paradigm. So it's the same with this. Like physically, you know, it has been shown definitively that there is power associated with these lines, and that it has something to do with Earth energies, and it probably has something to do with the magnetic field or the interaction of gravity and magnetics or whatever. That's been shown definitively. It's just that a lot of mainstream people don't accept it.
Is there any type of infrastructure in modern times that has been built according to ley lines on purpose?
That I don't know. I mean, I'm probably
power lines, etc.
Yeah, that would be interesting if people were doing. Well, okay, I know that the telegraph lines were run on.
Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes,
telegraph lines were run on ley lines because it facilitated it. It cost a lot less energy to send your telegraphs down the telegraph lines if they were run along the lines of power instead of across them, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what I was thinking.
So they paid for that during the Carrington event, though.
Maybe that's where I got the idea that like it was all thought to be bullshit, but then when they were doing telegraph, they were like, "Oh, if we actually follow these, it fucking works way better."
Well, that's kind of like the nature of engineers. Like a lot of times, you'll see that engineers don't really care what mainstream scientists think is true or not. If they find out that it works, they use it.
Yeah.
You know. So like if they
Fucking
engineers find out that that the ley lines make the telegraph lines work a lot better and use a lot less power, they're going to use it, and they won't say anything. They won't tell the scientists.
No. It has to go this way. Why? Just because it works better.
That's right. This is where we were able to put the line. That's where we got the property rights. Sorry.
Well, I guess we can take another break.
Oh yeah, we can take a break.
And sorry about the derail there.
No, it's all right. It was not really a derail. Just following the snakes in the grass. Pyramids tied behind our backs just to make it square. We are coming to you not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science. We are discussing pyramids, ley lines, and many other things. Right now, I want to shift slightly the discussion to other mysterious things, ooparts, out of place artifacts, which we have discussed some before, but one of our favorites here at Snakebros headquarters is hey, what are you laughing for? This is a serious thing, Snakebros headquarters.
Yeah. You're not allowed to laugh about it.
Shit. The London Hammer is what it's called, which is interesting because it was found in Texas. Not sure why I guess it was London, Texas. Is that the deal?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's a London style hammer.
I think, yeah, could be. I think it is. Okay, so let me just check this article out. 6 inches long, at only 6 inches long, the London Hammer, so named after being discovered near London, Texas, in 1936, is a peculiarly, how do you say that? Peculiarly small hammer.
Peculiarly.
Though by far the most bizarre aspect of its existence is that it was discovered completely encased in rock, suggesting that the rock material developed around it. A local couple discovered it while on a hike, having picked it up because of the odd piece of wood protruding from the rock. They then brought it home, and it remained undisturbed until their son took an interest in it in 1937. He wanted to find out what the protruding piece of wood led to, so he broke apart the stone and discovered the hammer encased within.
That's fucking crazy.
Estimates to its age based on the surrounding material wildly range from 1 million to 500 million years, though any precise dating is not necessarily important in this context, as anywhere between holds the same level of significance, since such an implement, according to conventional history, should not have existed even outside of the last 100,000 years. Adding to the mystery is the fact that parts of its handle are in the process of turning into coal, a detail which supports the understanding that this artifact may be truly millions of years old.
Or your idea of how long it takes coal to form is completely wrong.
Right. Yet what might be the most mysterious aspect of the London Hammer is the fact that since it has, this is the part that interested me, since it was exposed to air over 80 years ago, no rust has accumulated upon it, despite the hammer being over 96% iron. This is a baffling feat of metallurgy, the means for which remain unknown today. In regards to this, the only other comparable items we know of happen to be ancient and mysterious, the Iron Pillar of Delhi.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
Being one such example. So just to clarify, there is no technique we know of today to make an almost solid piece of iron impervious to rust. Yet our ancient ancestors somehow understood how to do this, at least those ancestors living across the Atlantic in ancient times. This is a rather critical detail because rust-resistant creations of iron are extremely rare, and the only two primary ones in the world which are known and accepted, the Iron Pillar of Delhi and the Eisener Man, which I'm not familiar with.
We should check that out.
Yeah. Are not found in the Americas and predate Columbus's discovery. To note, the Eisener Man is understood by those familiar with it to be an incredibly ancient remnant, though its first registered dating only began when it was transplanted in the 1600s to be used as a village boundary marker. So yeah, we need to check that thing out. To this day, the London Hammer is dismissed by many primarily due to a proposed theory which suggests that a form of rapid concretion must have taken place. In other words, it's a relatively modern hammer that came to be encased in stone due to some very exotic series of circumstances which rapidly formed stone around it.
Right, but that they're only allowing that idea to work around the hammer.
Right.
Whereas if you try to propose that idea
Anywhere else,
they're like, no, that can't
concretion
happen.
takes forever. Yeah. This flimsy explanation, which every party opposing the hammer's significance has been forced to lean on, is somewhat painful to swallow. Primarily because the notion that components of a strata can rapidly solidify together is entirely a theory and very close to outright speculation. Never has this process been recorded taking place. Minute examples of just so certain mineral interactions have been observed. Though when faced with a situation like this, that information is taken and grossly extrapolated to help reach a comfortable conclusion. This is comparable to aliens finding a tribe who's built grass huts and then announcing that these same tribe built the pyramids and going on to assume that they built everything on the planet. It's ignoring the more likely possibility that human civilization is older and more complex than we conventionally believe in favor of a woefully unlikely alternative. So,
yeah, but this whole concretion idea, like rapid concretion, if they can support that, for example, the concretion around the hammer, then what about these dinosaur footprints?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Maybe that happened rapidly.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't take 65 fucking million years or whatever. And
exactly.
Nope.
They'll get mad at that. Yep.
And they can't allow that.
So, and I found this with if you go through a list of the best parts, most of the counter arguments against them sound like special pleading, which is what that is. Like, you know, they're basically saying like, well, it must be an extraordinary set of circumstances that has never been known to take place anywhere else, but did take place here in order to keep our ideas the same.
Yeah.
Special pleading, right? They did that with the Nampa figurine, the little doll that was pulled up from 300 feet of the down in the well.
Yeah.
So I've seen it with a bunch of these. Like there's one that's a cube. Maybe that's another iron object. There's a cube that came out of a coal mine. It's a metal cube, and it's a strange alloy too. And they did the same thing with that. It's special pleading. Like, how did this metal get in there, and why is it an obviously artificial shape? So I don't know. That's why out of place artifacts are powerful there, and they're ignored mostly by the mainstream. They don't like them at all.
Yeah.
But if you go to if you go to badarchaeology.com, okay, this is a place where they do their best to debunk what they view as, fringe. Okay, so they have their list of the U parts, and they do their debunking, and it's it's pretty funny if you read it. Like it's all fallacies. It's massive amounts of fallacies. And then they blame Christians. They also hate Christians there. Because they view anybody who's interested in out of place artifacts as a 6K creationist. That's what they just label you as that. Like that, they think that all these anomalous items are only brought to the forefront by people who are trying to prove that the Earth is young, which is completely not the case.
Yeah.
So
but the iron pillar of Delhi is really fucking weird too.
Yeah.
And they still can't figure out like even the way like this metal was made. It's not like they're like, oh yeah, it's this really difficult way to make it.
Right, and it was cast, so they know that it was cast because of the way that it's formed. Yeah. But it's also a single piece. Like, in other words, it's not cast, like it's not multiple pieces and then stacked up to make a pillar. Right. Which makes it, to this day, still the single largest cast iron piece in the world, and we still couldn't replicate it. It's too big. Like, yeah, because there's a limit to casting iron based on, you start filling up a mold, and like everything needs to kind of stay the same temperature, and so there's a limit to how big of a mold you can fill up, because if the bottom part starts to cool before you've finished filling the thing, it's not going to work right? It won't form right. But this enormous pillar was cast as one piece, and again, like it was using some alloy of iron, which is almost pure. It's weird. Like most alloys have at least one other material in them that has a somewhat large percentage, but this is like 98% iron and then a bunch of tiny little trace things that somehow make it impervious to rusting.
That's crazy.
And it may be making it impervious to rusting by forming some kind of film. I remember reading that somebody had discovered that it had this protective layer on the outside that was being secreted from the interior of the metal. you know, and they found that because the changing environmental, or I guess I should say the pollution levels of the area where it is, right? So the pollution, because it's a city, the pollution levels were beginning to eat that protective layer on the outside of the thing away in certain areas, which was then beginning to rust. So it's like that was what cued them into seeing like, oh, maybe this is what's protecting it. Like it's actually got some sort of protective coating, you know, that, but it's intrinsic to the alloy itself. It's not like that it was sprayed with something.
Yeah.
And so the freaking smog was destroying it.
So you were reading this stuff about galvanized metal the other day, and it's like it actually secretes like an oil.
Yeah.
Which is really what keeps it from rusting.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's a very interesting thing. So another one of my favorite out of place artifacts, I don't have an article up here on it, but it was an aluminum object found in Romania. So they were digging along this old creek bed, I think, and they were down pretty far, like I don't know, 15 yards or whatever, down into the ground or whatever, and they found amongst all this sand, they found this aluminum object that kind of looks like it's a wedge shape, but it has holes bored through it. Yeah. It's an obvious artificial shape. It looks like
the backhoe tooth.
Yeah, it's the backhoe tooth or the Apollo lander foot, right? But it's big, you know. It was found in the sand with a couple of mastodon bones. All right, so it's it's down in the sand with a couple of and it's this obvious artificial aluminum artifact, and like the guy who initially found it decided that it was some kind of metal tool that they used to butcher mastodons, right? Which is like, come on, man, I don't think that's what it is. But they called it an axe head and they called it a splitting wedge or whatever. But it's obviously machined. It has these holes bored through it that are not, you know, this is not a handmade thing.
Isn't it also like a type of aluminum that we don't know how to make? Yeah.
So there's the closest thing we have in modern times is called duraluminum or something like that we make. And it's got 4 or 5 it's got zinc and, you know, other metals in it at small traces to make the aluminum a lot stronger. This object, when they did the testing on it, it has like 15 trace metals in it. And so there's nothing like it. Like I was looking at a list the other day. It's like aluminum 96%, and then it's like bam, bam, bam. It's like, you know, zinc and copper and iron and gold and silver and, you know, like all these metals listed in there in tiny trace amounts. And the other thing about it that made this object difficult for anyone to debunk was that it had a pretty thick layer of oxidation on the outside of it. Now, aluminum oxidizes like iron does, but it takes a long fucking time. Like aluminum will break down, but it takes a long fucking time.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a piece of aluminum with like, you know, an appreciable amount of aluminum rust on it, the white powder? Aluminum will develop like this white powdery stuff as it's rust. So think of when you've looked at iron and it's got a thick layer of rust on it. You've never seen a piece of aluminum like that because we haven't been making aluminum long enough for them to develop that much, right? Well, this thing had like a 1/4 inch of white powder on top of it.
Oh shit!
Right, of this oxidized aluminum, which showed that it was very, very old. You know, tens of thousands of years at the least.
Holy shit!
And I think the other aluminum out of place artifact was that belt found in the Chinese tomb. That they unearthed a tomb of a Chinese, I don't know if he was a nobleman or an emperor or whatever, but he was laid out in state with all of his jewelry, and he was wearing a fucking aluminum belt.
Badass.
And the guy died like 1,000 years ago or whatever, and they're like,
Batman.
what? No. Yeah. And it was, you know, supposedly aluminum was only, they all started to make it in the late 1800s, right? It's a very recent metal for modern civilization. It's very recent. Like, and for a while, it was more valuable than gold, which is why the founding fathers put the top of the obelisk in Washington, the Washington Monument.
Yeah,
it's got a pyramidion of aluminum on it because at the time the aluminum was more valuable than gold, which is why they used it.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, and if there's this is in one of the Dan Brown books, but like in the Capitol Rotunda, if you can get up there near where the painting is up there, you can get up. There's a walkway, and there's a place where there's a like a skylight or like a hatch you can open, and you can poke your head out of the top of the rotunda, and you can see the frickin' pyramidion of the obelisk out there. And if you do it at dawn or whatever, it comes up and like the sun shines off of it all bright and shit and hits you right in the eyes.
Oh, that's
it's badass. Yeah, it's really cool. Masons.
It's freaking awesome.
Okay, so the other one I want to talk about that I've got an article on here is the rock wall in Texas. We're going Texas anomalies here. Where is my rock wall article? Cart ruts. Here it is. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, there is a place out. It's an annexed suburb of Dallas, right? So Dallas has since grown over this town, but they established this town 1800s sometime. I'm not sure on the dates. Doesn't really matter. But when they established it, it was kind of out in the boondocks, and it was going to be a little township. And they had big fights over what it was going to be called, and it was like the three main big families who were sort of financing everything were fighting over whose name the town was going to be, like whether it was going to be this guy's last name or that. And the fight over the town name was solved when they were building a communal, like an artesian well in the center of the town, and they hit under the ground. They hit like what appeared to them to be a very large, massive megalithic stone wall. And they were like, well, that's the town name, Rockwall. Well, it's Rockwalls, right? So it's Rockwall, Texas. So the article says, a mysterious 18-mile wall lies beneath a town in Texas which received its name, Rockwall, once residents became aware of the enormous formation they were building upon. Although many in Rockwall, Texas today are unaware of the origin of their town's name, older residents will recall times when their family or family friends struggled with the immense wall running beneath their town while trying to dig a well or establish a structure. Some residents talk about the archways or windows their parents found while digging around it. Others talk about the nuisance as this giant wall, which altogether forms a large rectangle, presented when they were trying to originally create their homes. The wall was originally discovered in 1852 by T.U. Wade, B.F. Boydston, and a Mr. Stevenson. So those are the guys who were arguing over whose name is going to be the town. They came across the feature while establishing the area, and though they were originally torn on what to call their new settlement, they were so impressed by the wall that they unanimously decided to name their new town Rockwall. Since then, the wall has played a significant part in the lives of individuals settling in the area. Excavations into it and the chambers and passageways that it connects to beneath the town have together helped to show that the overall rectangular form of the wall is 5.6 miles long and 3.5 miles wide.
Holy shit.
The granddaughter of T.U. Wade, Mary Patty Gibson, who founded the Rockwall County Historical Foundation, has detailed many excavations into the passages and chambers connected to the wall. The passages generally lead towards the hill which the town is based upon, and the wall itself travels around. They're said to be made with steep slopes in a way that's similar to the passageways that have been attributed to the Mayans further south. Rooms and cubicles are also said to connect to these passageways. A particular excavation into one of the underground passages in 1909 was led by two men who were pursuing a treasure that local Native American lore had placed somewhere in the ancient maze of buried passageways.
Holy shit.
Apparently, oral tradition passed down by the natives in the region had kept them aware of the now buried complex. Still, no exact area was given to the men, and the effort was eventually abandoned due to the immense size and extreme depth that needed to be searched, roughly 20 square miles, as well as the fact that many of the passages required intensive labor to stabilize. For Harvard-trained architect John Lindsay, a man who spent a tremendous amount of time researching the wall, he's come to believe the site demands further attention as it showcases what appear to be a variety of man-made features. Quote, after compiling past records, data, and documents, including recent studies and research, evidence of a prehistoric structure built by man is mounting, unquote, John Lindsay in 1996.
Wow.
Geologist James Shelton is another figure who's intensively studied the area and joined researchers like John Lindsay in calling for a greater degree of attention to be given to the structure. He went as far as to publish a paper titled An Unsolicited Plea for an Assistance in Reevaluation of the Rockwall County, Texas Rockwall Anomaly, where, among other things, he discusses how the geological explanation for the wall being a natural formation has a severe number of issues undermining it. Undermining. In one such example, he explains that, quote, the rock wall dike system has long been known for its resemblance to construction as opposed to most sand dikes that do not display staggered joint stone masonry features, unquote. So yeah, one of the things that the sculptors say is it's a sand dike, that it's a natural formation or whatever. And this guy's like, well, no other sand dike in the world looks like this. So yeah. I'm not sure that is valid. As well, he details how, quote, various linteled portals and archways complete with arch-guiding Springer stones have been documented along the wall, unquote. Mr. Shelton goes on to say, many of the openings are, in fact, square and resemble windows or conduits for water. One lintel that was excavated and brought up from a water well in 1949 had what appeared to be an ancient script on it that is roughly in a straight line across the stone.
Holy shit!
What is more interesting is that a copper coin-like object found in cuttings from an augered well in 1870 in Illinois at a depth of 125 feet had 2 humans portrayed on it and the exact same script etched around the edge of the object.
Gotta see these.
Yeah.
Where are they? Shit.
Other researchers have dismissed the wall as a natural occurrence, claiming that it must be a very exotic example of a sand dike formation.
Losers. Moving on.
While most of these researchers will agree that it's like nothing they've ever seen before, the major stumbling block seems to be that the alternative explanation, being that the wall was constructed, is too far beyond their belief system, an issue which prevents many researchers from accepting extremely ancient constructions. The conventional understanding of history says that no civilization capable of creating such a work existed in the area, so acknowledging the wall as artificial means standing against the tenacious mainstream academic community and can amount to career suicide. The exposed wall is quite spectacular to see firsthand, and determining its origin, genesis, and age invokes a number of exciting research opportunities that can certainly advance our understanding of this type of phenomena. The most important fact, however, is the point that geologists actually do not know the precise processes that created this feature, and therefore a systematic and detailed study of a section of the wall has the potential to expand our knowledge and reveal new data not considered heretofore. Randall Moore, PhD archaeologist. In 2013, geologist Scott Wolter and Dr. John Geisman, who's probably the most vocal critic speaking against the idea that the wall was constructed, analyzed the site as part of a History Channel special. While they agreed that it was very unique, they decided that it was still possible that it could have been formed by natural means. What they used to prop up this belief was the finding that some of the rocks shared similar magnetism, which could suggest that they were made in the same place. Yet this is a somewhat troublesome way to dismiss the site as a natural formation. For one thing, if it is indeed an artificial construction, then it was almost certainly created at an extremely remote time in the past. Right away, that extreme age poses an issue for understanding the origins of the site based on magnetism, because natural factors can alter the magnetism of an object over time. For another, the material tested could have come from the same area and is likely to have. Another aspect to consider is that the mechanism in which the stones were created may be a form of artificial concretion. In other words, the stones could have been cast in place at the site using a mixture of materials. I think he's talking about geopolymers. And if that's the case, then the blocks would share similar magnetism. Many researchers studying some of the oldest megalithic sites have begun to consider concretion as a possibility because it explains many of the abnormalities that can be found as a mixture of material can be used to make unique shapes that are more resilient through the ages than square blocks. And the issue of transportation and placement becomes far more practical.
Yeah.
The formations of the wall resemble similar features that can be found further south in ruins attributed to the Maya, and as far south as Peru amongst the incredibly mysterious ruins of Sacsayhuama.
Oh, Sacsayhuama.
So yeah, that's like right on our doorstep.
That's really badass.
Right there.
When was that written? At least 2013.
Yeah, this is very recent. This is a fairly new website called mindthehive.com, and they have badass articles on all kinds of ancient interesting shit. Mine the Hive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm glad to hear that new research.
Yeah, this was written January 10th, 2018.
Holy shit.
By
awesome.
Mind the Hive.
That's really great.
The article I read from about the London Hammer was also Mind the Hive.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'd like to find or like check out the sources that were on that, because they were talking about the research that
the Historical Society. Like, dude, the Rockwall. I didn't know that they had this woman's running the Rockwall Historical Society. That's where all the pictures that he.
Yeah, we should contact them.
Yeah,
and see if like we can go.
Yeah, give me how can, like contact her and be like, so can we get up there and we have a podcast? Can we get up there and see the Rockwall? And, get lost and die. We'll podcast about it.
Yeah.
It may never get out because we could get lost and die, but still, there'll be a podcast about it.
So that's like really badass that the Native American population there.
Yeah, they had legends
about it. Like, dude, come on. And there's treasure hidden under it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fucking.
And giants and ancient script. And
snakes.
Yeah.
It's a big rock snake.
Yep. So there's this other one that I found that was interesting, and I've known about this for a while. But the Mind the Hive take the Mind the Hive take on it is fascinating, and it's about some ruins in China. Now China is really secretive on their ancient ruins because they don't like their story being changed by archaeology.
Yeah.
Well,
they're similar to other people.
Here they are. Well, but they're a lot worse. Like, they planted all those fast-growing conifer trees on their pyramids.
Yeah.
And
hide the pyramids.
Yeah, well, I just found out that they're actually hoping that they will destroy them, which is worse. Like the conifer trees they're extremely fast-growing type, and their roots are destructive. So, yeah. Okay, but this is about some enormous, and I mean literally freaking enormous megalithic blocks that are found in an ancient quarry. It's called the ruins of Yamanshan Mountain. It's in China. Okay, along the side of Yamanshan Mountain, located 20 kilometers to the east of Nanjing, China, the legendary Yangshan Quarry can be found, although it is believed to have been in use from at least the time of the Six Dynasties, which is 220 to 589 AD. The majority of the work at Yangshan is still attributed to the wave of construction that took place after the Ming Dynasty was founded in 1368 AD, when the new emperor Zhu Yangfang chose nearby Nanjing to become his capital city. As the story goes, the emperor's son ordered the construction of a gigantic stele in 1405 AD for the Ming Zhaoling Museum, which had been built for by his father, and was then later completed during the reign of his son. The mountain quarry Yangshan was chosen by the city's stone masons. They were then said to have cut and crafted 3 enormous blocks from the mountainside before finally coming to the realization that the blocks they had been cutting were far too big. At which point they abandoned the effort in favor of a more realistic project. Just put it down. It's too big. Just put it down. How big were these blocks that they were mistakenly sized up? The stele that these masons did end up creating for the emperor is 6.7 meters tall. Or 8.78 meters tall if you include the height of the stone tortoise it's perched on. And altogether with the tortoise would weigh right around 100 tons. If assembled, the stele that they were said to have mistakenly attempted would have been over 8 times as tall, 73 meters high, and over 310 times its weight, or in other words, 31,000 tons. For reference, a typical car weighs between 1 and 1.5 tons. Here we go.
Yes.
The largest monolith in the ancient and modern world is the 1,250-ton thunderstone moved by Russia in 1770, resembling a rough outcropping that was never carved. Okay, so then they have a picture of there's the tortoise stele that was actually erected. See, there's a guy standing there. Look at this block that was the supposed mistakenly cut out block in the quarry. This is enormous, okay? Like, there's a picture up here of the guy standing next to it. That's the block. Yeah, like literally gigantic.
Is that bigger than the Baalbek?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, 31,000 tons.
I don't know how heavy the Baalbek
is. Oh, it's close to 2,000.
2,000 tons.
Yeah, so we're talking, this is enormous. One part of the stele was claimed to have been cut out for the emperor, so he's showing the picture here. It's hundreds of times bigger than anything man has ever been known to move. If taken as authentic history it's presented as, this story should be alarming for a number of reasons. What could have led the emperor's master masons to believe that they could transport 3 blocks totaling 31,000 tons, 20 kilometers through the mountains? How could the construction of the emperor's grand gift to his father have been entrusted to such a thoroughly incompetent group? Especially when considering that overall this was many enormous blunders taking place over a very long period and would have involved a substantial number of people. It seems preposterous that the effort wouldn't have been halted almost immediately, let alone being allowed to begin in the first place. Like, yeah, somebody would come out and be like, what? That's too fucking big. Like, don't even start cutting that. But they've cut almost all of it out, right? The severe differences in size, placement, and shape of the cuts indicates that they were never meant to be placed together or even moved. If they were, they also wouldn't have been cut at the same time and in such disparate fashions. Consider as well the long-running conflict that was being fought with the Mongols at the time, which was soaking up much of the resources and attention, and the fact that only years later the country's bankrupt treasury couldn't even manage to find the funds to create a single print of their newly created encyclopedia. This strenuous period doesn't exactly appear to be the time to embark on one of the most immense engineering projects known to man, a project that would have amounted to nothing more than an art piece, if finished. So here's another
So
picture.
what are they suggesting that this was done way before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That the quarry is a very, very ancient,
I
and
got
that this is like Sacsayhuaman / this is ancient like Tiwanaku stuff. It looks like Tiwanaku blocks.
You know, the little lumps sticking out of the side there. You know?
Yeah, it's got the same weird. Yeah, so and it's the same deal. Okay, they say
What is that in the quarry?
yeah.
That picture?
Yeah, the blocks are all still in the quarry. Okay, so for instance, in the image to the left, 3 outcroppings of rock can be seen. These at first might be seen as sites to attach ropes. However, their placement quickly deflates this idea. They can only be found on some of the stones, and they're also clustered on a single side of some of the stones. Many of the protrusions are also fully rounded and would make poor grips for rope. Certainly, certain ones are also beneath the area where the block would have been cut, which is the same with what we see in these other megalithic. They say, oh, those are protrusions for lifting things or whatever. And you're like, dude, you can't get a rope around that. It's like a little knob that's all rounded off, Okay, so let's see.
Water erosion.
Yeah.
But it's not old enough.
It becomes even harder to accept that these blocks were ever intended to be moved when examining the patterns carved into the walls of the rooms that have been created beneath the giant masses of stone, as seen in the pictures below. So there's these etch patterns in the walls.
Well, that could have been done later, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Engraved a centimeter or more and sometimes deeper than an inch, these patterns appear to have been worked into the interior surfaces of these structures in much in the same way that entoptic phenomena was incorporated into some of the oldest cave art sites in the world. Entoptic phenomena in an archaeological context are patterns that naturally occur within the eye or brain, which are then used as a motif for art when their occurrence in a normal human's experience is greatly increased due to that person undergoing an altered state of consciousness.
Drugs.
In other words, on drugs. Our ancient ancestors used to put themselves into altered states of consciousness, typically through the use of naturally occurring psychedelic compounds, and they would then carve...
Like LSD.
That's right, like dose of acid
Like
in the
LSD,
eye, man.
Natural.
And they would then carve or paint entoptic phenomena, among other things, inside of caves on and on rock faces. If the engravings at this site are truly indicative of this entoptic phenomena, this realization might help place the site into a much deeper period of antiquity, as the other examples of entoptic phenomena in cave art typically receive dates on the order of tens of thousands of years old. To be clear, these long engraved patterns of lines are certainly not the aftermath of the stone in these openings simply being removed, at least not by any tools or techniques attributed to ancient man, though many, particularly along the side walls, do resemble what remains after a pass by a modern heavy excavator. Okay, because they're so patterned, it looks like
big old scratches.
So why would the workers said to be quarrying these blocks go through the trouble? The designs appear artistic, similar to what might be found in a ritual space. Additionally, and strangely enough, they don't appear to have been made by a basic chisel. One particularly bizarre aspect of the site is just how much stone appears to have been moved. Looking at the spaces between the major blocks and the surrounding mountains, it looks as if millions of tons of rock has been removed. The region is known to have been a quarry for some time, though this explanation would hardly seem to account for the staggering amount of rock that appears to have been moved. In addition, if the site was used to quarry rock then take it elsewhere, it was done so in a very bizarre fashion, as if there was a contrived effort to leave behind towering flat walls, which is not found in any other ancient quarry. A more reasonable explanation would seem to be that whoever initially worked at this site did so to create the structures found there. It'd be an immense project, though not entirely without precedent. The Longyou Caves, which are another one of my favorite Chinese mysteries, which are a few hundred miles away, are considered to be one of the ancient world's biggest engineering projects, though no one can determine who made them or why. A similar amount of stone would have been displaced in the area around Yamanshan as in the Longyou Caves. As well, the Longyou Caves have very similar patterns of engraved lines on the walls like those seen in the images. If the site really is the ruins of some incredibly ancient culture, there's a possibility that they might have lessened their workload by using rubble, masonry, stonework, and rammed earth building techniques to shape different parts of the area. So they show you some examples of this, like where they, like, so if you're quarrying or whatever, you end up with all this rubble, you can kind of stack it up within forms and then pour an aggregate into a concrete into it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the rammed earth is similar, except you're putting down layers of flagstones and then you pour a concrete around that and you get kind of, they can smooth out the outsides and get a sort of a block-looking thing, right, with strata in it. And they show how, like, one of the big blocks, this has this weird stratigraphy that looks not natural, but like it was more rammed earth.
Yeah.
So this may be a constructed block, which is pretty cool.
That would be really old.
Yeah, it'd be incredibly old, yeah. What seems clear is that there's more to this site than being a simple quarry. However, its original purpose is tough to discern. Look, this is like in one of the weird holes, rooms carved underneath the block. Like, what are those things?
Yeah, it's badass. They look like ramparts.
Yeah, they do. or it's like...
Right? That's what the little...
Yeah, you're talking about the
things on top of the castle. You know, little...
Yeah, the little stone teeth.
Yeah,
square stone teeth on top of the castle.
That's what it looks like, but it's in a hole.
Right.
Like
they're all different shapes too, which makes me think like they're tables or pedestals of some kind. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
they held.
Yeah, they held sacred objects. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or engineering, and like to where there's a part that goes in there,
fits on there. Yeah, and starts vibrating the rock. And
you're gonna post pictures of these on this?
Yeah, I gotta post all these pictures on there, people. Sorry. What is known is that at least some material has been taken from this site, so it's likely that those operations would have taken apart any smaller stone structures as well as removing anything that might be considered valuable or precious, such as what might be found in a temple. Further shrouding the site in mystery is the intense level of secrecy China maintains in regards to some of its strangest ancient ruins. Many sites are completely restricted, and in general, it's almost impossible to gain permission to dig at or research any historical site.
Ugh.
Even more frustrating, as well as bizarre, is that the existence of certain megalithic sites is simply denied. For instance, the hundreds of pyramids that cover China's landscape weren't acknowledged until more recent times, and, at first, these structures were downplayed as a handful of small Han-era burial mounds. To this day, the areas with the largest and most interesting structures are off limits. A few well-known burial mounds are available to the public, and it's explained that any other pyramid-like structures that exist are just like the ones that can be seen. Also interesting to note is that the Chinese government has since gone out of their way to cover some of the pyramids with a fast-growing species of conifer, seemingly for the purpose of masking their presence from aerial photography while also degrading their structure.
Assholes.
Yeah. As is the case with most of our world's oldest existing works of art and architecture, the creation seems to belong to a disparate culture that embodied a way of life radically different than our own. And just like other ancient megalithic sites, it would seem its builders utilized techniques that have long since been lost, a body of techniques that likely arose from an entirely different tree of engineering, which allowed for the working and moving of enormous stones to be a far more practical endeavor.
Man, we need to call up Zeeping. Just be like, dude, come on, man. It's a big deal.
I mean, they're big rocks, but come on.
Yeah, we know you got pyramids. We've seen them on Google Earth, Z.
Zeeping. Well, what they get mad at is when people start digging around these ancient sites, they find red-haired longheads.
Yeah,
And like, unfortunately,
it's the old indigenous problem. We need to take a break.
Yeah,
we'll come back, and that's badass. I'd like to talk about that some more. But
yeah, let's talk about this more.
Sneak break.
Yep.
Take a
2, 3, snakes.
Snakes! And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The final segment of the final hour. Is it my turn for the intro?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, final segment of the final hour of Snakebros podcast. Intro done.
Intro done.
So this quarry in China. Did you just find this? Like this is on this new website you've been looking at, or whatever.
Yeah. Mind the Hive, which is it's badass. Like they're still adding to it, but they've already got a bunch of articles up about out of place artifacts and ancient sites that have. Not only do they have like unique pictures, like I've read a lot about Rockwall, but I've never seen the photos that they've got on this site. Like this guy clearly did his research, called the Historical Society of Rockwall, and got actual pictures from them because like I've never seen them before.
Are these guys like known players in this whole ancient shit?
Mind the Hive? I don't know who they are, but I was reading something on Ancient Origins, which is another site that we use all the time here. And I saw at the end of the Ancient Origins article that it said that this was originally sourced from Mind the Hive. And I was like, clicked on that and bam, I'm like, holy shit, this is a badass site. So I'm like, I've already got the first comment.
Oh, you got the first comment?
Yeah, I was reading that there are. like all of their ancient artifacts articles are artifacts that I know about, but I'm reading them because every one of them has information in it that I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's great.
That's clearly sourced. And so like I was reading about the Iron Pillar, that they've got an Iron Pillar of Delhi article, and I'm reading it, and I saw that he didn't have this stuff in there about it being cast. You know, he talked a lot about the rust and about the materials and everything like that, and some other interesting stuff. But I was like, yeah. So the second mystery about this thing is that it's a cast iron object, and it's a single object, which makes it the largest cast iron object ever made, even though it was made thousands of years ago. Like we still couldn't duplicate it today.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
You tell him, bro.
First.
Did you sign it Snakebros?
Yeah, it's Brothers of the Serpent is what I was logged into at the time. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Man, that's really cool. I'm glad they're around, and I love that research they're doing there. So the information that they got on this Chinese site, I guess, is all that there is because they've kind of shut it down now?
Yeah. So I've known about that monument. I never knew the name of it, but I knew about that enormous megalith in this quarry in China, and that it was anomalous and that the official story about it just kind of sounded like bullshit. Like, no, this was clearly not somebody trying to make a little stele, and then made a mistake because it was too big. It's just like way too big. It's fucking far too big for when you look at what they actually ended up building. You're like, no, that is not what happened. Those guys didn't go out there and be like, and start cutting this thing out and be like, you know what? Maybe we can't move this. We should make one some smaller. And then they make one that's, 100 times smaller than that. So I knew about it, but I did not know about the patterns carved into the walls underneath it. I'd never seen that anywhere. And like, as soon as I saw the picture, I was like, that clearly looks like the Longyou grottos. I mean, I saw it instantly when I saw the pattern of carving. I was like, that's Longyou grottos. So to me, it seems like the same people were responsible for these two projects.
Yeah, so I had pulled up the Longyou grottos.
Oh, good.
And it's there's like all these lateral lines that go all the way around the interior chamber. Is the natural, supposedly?
No.
Or is that the actual markings of the carving itself? Wow.
And it really looks like, I mean, like
and the pillars are all carved like ornately.
Yeah. I mean, and if you look,
there's like dragons and shit carved in there.
Yeah.
It's so freaking badass.
Yeah. And the artwork, although it looks somewhat Asian, right? Like you see, like they're wearing these flowing robes and they're like walking on water and they've got dragons and shit. It kind of has an Asian motif, but at the same time, the artwork that's and it's in high relief on the walls in Longyou grottos. It doesn't match anything known anywhere. Like, in other words,
like all the lines on the ceiling match up with the lines on the pillars that come off of the ceiling because the ceiling's slanted,
right?
And these lines are going across the ceiling, and where one line meets the pillar up higher, there's a line that comes off the pillar that matches it, and then as the ceiling slants down, the other lines meet up at lower points on the pillar that are, and so they're like equal in distance, and then the pillar just has them going all the way down to the floor. It's freaking badass.
Yeah, and so the large pattern you're looking at there, inside each one of those large lines is another set of smaller carved lines that are like at a 45 degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's just beautiful.
I'm like looking at this pillar and the interior of this room, and then there's this tiny little mouse hole in the bottom of the wall in the back, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a door.
That's a door. Yeah, that's right. That's a people door.
That's a people door, and it's big.
Yeah. So, and there's the story about those is fantastic. Like in other words, in that area, the Longyou province is a very rural, like rice planting. What face of amazement. What did you see?
I'm looking at a tunnel picture that was done by a boring machine. Like one of those Tesla boring company.
Yeah.
And look at the walls.
Yeah.
Somebody put that on there because it looks like
it looks like it.
Those parallel lines.
Yeah. Yep. But so in the Longyou province, it's rural. They're farmers, right? They're basically Chinese peasants, and they've got these pools, these pools of water all all around the place in the area, and they're small. They're like relatively small pools, but they're freaking incredibly deep. They call them, I don't know the Chinese word for them. But the name for them basically means bottomless pools.
Yeah, this is the story you talked about.
Yeah, and they eventually get the pump.
Pumped it out.
Like, man, fuck, I'm not gonna be like mystified my entire life with these fucking pools. So they get the pump, and they put it down in there. And I recently found out that, or at least I don't know now. When I first read the story, it was a guy that did this. Now they're saying it was a woman, but it doesn't matter. They got pumps and they.
Yes, it does, Russ.
It doesn't matter.
Hashtag it matters. Sorry.
SWF. Everything matters. So they started to pump the water out of one of the pools, and as the water level of the pool went down, they saw that the pool actually widened. The walls were going outwards. In other words, the pool was widening as it got deeper, and then they started to see the tops of stele and carved stuff, and so they started to pump it. Now, at this point, I think they found 36 of them.
Damn.
Okay, and they're all in the same area. They're in a relatively small area, and you got 36 of these multi-level, incredibly complex, like mini tunnels, things, and they're all right next to each other in the same rock, right? To the point, but none of them intersect. Like none of them connect to each other. They're all isolated. Even though in some places it's well known that it's been found out that like one tunnel on one complex will be running through the rock, and then another complex will have a tunnel right there, and they'll be within inches of each other. Like the wall will be thick enough to be supportive or whatever, but like they're running perfectly parallel, even though they're completely separate. Yeah, how do you even do that? How do you fucking do that? And then there's other places where like there'll be in one complex, there's a tunnel and it's got shelves that go underneath like this down low. And then in the complex next to it, it's got a tunnel like this and the shelves are up high. So they like...
they fit into interlocking tunnels.
What the fuck, dude?
So I'm looking at this high relief carving in one of the caves.
Is it the big one with the 4 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they're walking on water.
Yeah, they're all on the water, and it's like foam of the sea.
Yeah,
and the waves are all frothy and
right. It's like 2 guys and 2 women or something like that. There's a female in there, right?
There's a female in the back, of course,
but she's riding the dragon or something.
No,
right?
there's a donkey. It looks like that's the second one. If you start from the back, there's like a female. She looks like she's holding something in her.
Yeah, they all have instruments or something like that.
And then there's looks like a bearded guy on a donkey, but I don't know. And then there's 2 dudes standing. This guy, the third guy, has like these items in his hand, but it kind of looks like the Sumerian things that they have. They always have something like stuffed in their belt. Yeah. They got the weird Chris knife thing stuffed in their belt. He's got like that, and this other dude has like a fan, like the little hand fan.
Oh yeah,
and he's pointing ahead.
Yep. Like, come, we must walk across these waves.
But it's like it makes me think of like forces of nature or something.
Right. Like the north, south, east, and west winds.
Yeah, something like that. It's really cool. Holy shit.
Yeah, the tunnel, and so, like I said, there's been 36 of them found so far, but for whatever reason, again, Chinese government being weird, only one of them is open to the public, so nobody knows what the other ones look like.
Now I'm looking at this picture that says the mind-blowing Longyou Caves. No, but this has got to be...
Let me see it. What?
In Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's not...
It's like this massive...
That's not...
dome-shaped rock with a little... hut on a stone square on top of it.
That's in Jordan or something. That's not Longyou.
Anyway, sorry. I'm just sitting here looking at pictures.
So yeah, the carving styles, like where you end up with these patterns on the walls, is clearly reminiscent of Longyou. Even though, like I'd say in Longyou, it's more structured. The pattern is more structured than at the other at Yangshan, at the Yangshan quarry or whatever, but it looks the same. And the fact that despite what they say, those patterns that are left in the walls do not appear to have been made with a standard basic chisel. Like whatever they used, it was not that.
Yeah.
And the other similarity is the fact that apparently, well, with Longyou, we know that literally like tens of millions of cubic feet of stone was completely removed from these systems. Like an almost unimaginable amount of stone was, and it's nowhere to be found. Like it is gone. It's not in piles of rubble nearby. It's not spread out. It hasn't. Nobody knows where it is. The stone is fucking gone.
That's crazy.
Like
so it was done, maybe perhaps, so just throwing this out there, but it was done long enough to where the like all of the vegetation and the soil that's on top of the ground normal is now on top of it. Like maybe it was done back when it was more desert.
Yeah, it could be. They kind of look more like quarries than anything else, though. So it seems like they were quarrying the rock, but it's also, that's a weird thing to say because like
they had to get it out of these small holes that come up.
So
to the
it
surface.
only makes sense as a quarry that was done by machinery.
Yeah, like if they were more like a mine than a quarry.
Yeah,
because they would be taking it out in small little bits, not massive stones.
Well, I mean, like the pool. Yeah, if you could take the pools are not tiny. They're big enough to where you can see the entrances of them. Like in some of the pictures, you see the light coming down from the pool, right? But yeah, you would. But most quarries remove stone in blocks that are like the size of like a minivan or whatever, right? You cut a block out. Like modern quarries, they cut a big block.
Yeah,
out
and they don't go down under the ground in tunnels,
right,
to get it.
Yeah, exactly. That's
the whole top of the quarry is open.
Yeah, exactly.
These are like there's a small opening, and the interior is huge, so it's more like a mine.
Yeah, yeah, but it definitely doesn't have living space kind of stuff in it. It's just large open galleries with pillars that are left in the rock for support to hold up the ceiling. And they slant down or whatever. So it looks like they were removing material, but it is
artistically done, for sure.
Yeah, it's very artistically done. And it's just weird as a mine because they weren't mining anything. It's the rock that is there.
Sediment?
Is sediment. It's very hard, but porous. Like,
yeah.
Well,
yeah, I just meant that if they were using material that they were getting out of it, they were using it in small chunks.
Yeah.
Compared to the size that,
yeah, so maybe they were mining it for geopolymers.
Maybe, yeah.
But still, even then, like, why wouldn't you just do an open one? Like, why enclose it like that?
That makes it harder to get it out, for sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So how far away is that from the site?
Like
that's
a couple hundred miles. It's pretty close.
And how far away was they had to go like 20 kilometers or whatever for where the turtle thing, the stele?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were going to move that 31,000 ton thinger. Well, it's 31,000 tons all put together. The three pieces that are there that they were saying were parts of the steles. There's one big block and then another one in the base.
I'm wondering if the carving on the wall in the Longyou thing is like actually more recent.
Yeah,
like because it looks like Chinese art that you would see. Like
I thought of that too, but maybe Chinese art looks like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it almost looks out of place. Inside the place.
It looks, but it's high relief, which is kind of hard to do later. Like unless you like cut the whole wall back. You know what I mean? Like if it was low relief, then you can say, yeah, this is intrusive. But high relief is like, I don't know. Unless there was a feature on the wall there that stuck out and somebody carved it back into high relief. I don't know.
But you can remove some of the. You start removing stuff, but leave the carving in high relief.
But then you would see an indented square. You know what I mean? Like the fact that the wall is kind of smooth and that you have these figures on it makes it seem like they were left there by the original masons.
Yeah, I'd have to see it because like the area around them is all taken away.
Oh.
So it's kind of hard to tell. Like look at it.
Yeah.
Hard to tell unless you were there. Does it stick out further than the rest of the wall?
Right.
It's kind of like on Stone Mountain in Georgia. Like the characters there are in high relief, but they had to remove. You can see the big
indent it. Yeah.
You can see the big oval where they started chipping away around it,
right,
in order to leave what they were carving.
Yeah. Well, and you can so like down here you see the pattern below them.
Yeah.
Right. So up here the pattern is gone, but you can see it all around it. So maybe that is cut in later. You can see where it was cut out, like the pattern was removed.
Right.
But they still left these sort of, I don't know. But yeah, like I agree that when you were looking at it, I was like, yeah, they look like Chinese art. So it could be intrusive, but well, I don't know who did it, because it's still clearly very old. The things are full of water.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
And so this is another thing that doesn't make sense about Longyou. Like, the rock is saturated. The stone there is saturated with water. Like any hole you cut into rock will eventually slowly fill up with water because the stone is saturated, right? Because
so you have to keep pumping it and pumping.
Right. So in other words, it seems like whoever originally carved this out, like cut it out in order for it to make sense as a quarry or a mine or whatever, it must have been before the end of the ice age when the sea level rose up.
Yeah, exactly.
When the water table was way lower, so this would have been dry, which puts it at a minimum of 10,000 years.
Yeah, see, here's one where there's like the part of a dragon in the pillar. It definitely looks like it goes in first and then the dragon sticks out.
Yeah. So somebody found it after the original builders.
And did graffiti.
And then it filled up with water. Yeah. So, and then I guess that's typical, like that's what we see in South America too. You see like 3 stages, really, right? You see like this incredibly massive, almost unbelievable ancient construction. And then there's another set of megalithic, not as big, not as skillful, but still just incredibly badass, amazing ancient construction. And then there's like modern stuff, which sucks, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the same thing there. Like whoever originally cut the chambers out were the original guys. And then later somebody with a lot of skill, but not as much, came along and found those ancient sites. They were probably already ancient to them.
Yeah.
And then left their mark.
Or like in Egypt where they might find this massive pyramid or whatever, and it has no language or carve it or whatever on it, and then they go in there and then they plaster and paint all the walls and then put their freaking they bury themselves in it.
Yeah. Yep. What was it? What did the guy call that? I can't remember. He had a way of he had this phrase. A friend of mine online had a phrase that he used for that. The intrusive burials is what the archaeologist called it. He called it something else. Anyway,
mine.
Mine. This mine is mine. So
that's really badass.
I think that like Rockwall is probably something like this. Like we're looking at I mean, think about it. The size of the construction, 5.6 miles by 3 point whatever miles.
I thought, okay, so they originally, when you were reading that article, they said 18 miles long. Did that mean like the whole rectangle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like a big hill, and this wall
apparently goes all the way around it.
Yeah.
It's a fortified
it looks like the platforms in Lebanon and in Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome, dude. We got to go there.
Yeah.
5 hours away.
Road trip. And another thing.
But I don't want to go there and not be able to see shit.
Right. So we'll get a hold of the historical society first and be like, look, we're gonna come up there.
We are Snakebros.
Yes, we are Snakebros. We are very important.
Take us to your wall.
Just take us to your wall. Show it to us. We just show up in the historical society like we're supposed to be there, like that guy said, right?
Yeah.
It's like what you guys aren't ready for the tour yet? You're supposed to fucking take us to the wall. What the fuck? Our agent got a hold of you last week. What the fuck? Get him on the phone right now. Come on. Where's the van? But yeah, like that's, and there are so many weird stories and legends about Rockwall, about that construction, about people going down in there and finding, enormous artifacts that were made by giants or whatever.
Yeah.
Or huge bones stuck to the floors, crystallized on the floors and shit.
And one of the pictures you had on there of the rock wall, it comes down and then juts out at an angle and then goes down more.
Yeah,
just like in Baalbek.
Yeah, it looks like Baalbek, yeah. I'm like, clearly this is the same people. But another thing I was reading recently, I think it was David Hatcher Childress was talking about this. He was writing an article about how many legends there are of like enormous roadways beneath the ground, like underneath all, going to all these ancient sites in the Americas.
Yeah.
Right. And like he talks about he actually had dug up records of the original, like Spanish chroniclers. That some of the they were usually priests because they were the only guys that could write. Those conquistadors, they didn't know how to write. they knew how to kill people.
They knew how to wrong.
Yeah. Right. Priests know how to write. Conquistadors knew how to wrong. So, yeah, one of the original...
Wrongo doesn't make writing. Sorry.
Sometimes. There are a few times,
Snake jokes.
Wrongo doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make writing.
No, it doesn't make writing. Oh. Wow, that's a dad joke. That's
a snake joke. Come on.
Serious dad joke. All right, we have 3 seconds. Okay.
Get it all out. Done.
So he was
Thanks,
talking
everyone.
About,
Goodbye.
He was talking about these roadways that are or passageways or whatever. Like, so from the fortress of Sacsayhuaman at Cusco down to the Coricancha, which is the sun temple in Cusco, there's supposed to be an underground passageway, but it actually, they say that it spreads out into this enormous labyrinth of cut channels in the rock deep beneath the city or whatever,
These are legends?
Well, they are like legends now, but Childress had dug up these reports from the
the writer, the
chroniclers,
with the writing,
the priest or whatever, and he talked about how first they discussed it in terms of like, where did the golden mummies go? Okay, because one of the things that happened when Pizarro conquered the place or whatever is that the ancestors of the current king or whatever were supposedly their mummies were stored in the Sun Temple and they were coated in gold leaf. Okay, so they were the golden. There's 20 of them, the ancestors of this guy, or maybe it was 8. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But these were never recovered. They were somehow secreted away along with a shitload of other treasure. And there's a legend that they were taken to a place called I don't know how to say it, Patiti or whatever. It's a secret city, which they thought they had found when they found Machu Picchu. They totally thought they had located the secret city where all the treasure had been stored, but no treasure was there. But finding Machu Picchu gave people an idea of the kind of secret cities that these people may have been talking about. Like you could not see Machu Picchu from down in the valley. You just couldn't tell it was up there.
Yeah.
The mountain goes almost straight up, and there was no road or path, But some of the legends say that all the gold and everything was taken to a city, but some of them say that the mummies and the gold and everything were stored in this labyrinth beneath Cusco. Okay. And there are also stories of people finding entrances, going into them, being gone for days, and some of them never come back, obviously, but some of them do come back out having gone mad. Like they're totally crazy or, they've lost their minds or whatever, but they're carrying like a gigantic gold bar or whatever, which that sounds like fanciful to me. Like, the guy comes out completely insane carrying gold. Like, okay, right. That sounds like a story. Good, cool story, bro. But, the entrances were known. Okay. They were known. And like one of the chroniclers talked about how he had, when he was younger, he had gone into the first part of the underground passageway and talked about how the floor was made of these polished, enormous flagstones, and that the ceiling was like similar to huge lintel stones crossing the ceiling. Wow! Right, and that it was carved, and all the surfaces were polished to like a mirror shine, like like marble, like you could see your reflection in it. But that him and the other people that he was with were too afraid. He was like, we were terrified to go, farther in there than the sun was, than the sunlight was, getting through the entrance. He was just like, because people go in here and never come out, Yeah. And there were, yeah, I've thought about this. Like, if we ever went there, we would probably find an entrance and go in and never come out. Because there's obviously somebody has booby trapped the place. I mean, if you're going to put enormous golden mummies down there and a bunch of other treasure, you're going to, trap it. And probably Rockwall, if there's passageways and shit like that, we'll probably find one and we'll probably go in and never come out because it's probably trapped too. Or like he said in the article that some of the passageways require an enormous amount of work to get them stable before you can, but we'll just, that ain't gonna matter.
It's great news to know that there's still like studying and like people wondering and wanting to find out more and take another look at it and everything. Because I thought that whole argument was dead.
What, a rock wall?
Yeah, I mean,
no, there are some people with actual credentials who are interested in it.
That's great.
Just not very many, and they can't get the ears of their peers because their peers are too scared of their losing their gerbs.
Yeah, don't want to lose your gerb.
That's right. Well, that's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys very much for being with us. You can anytime you want to comment, you can go to brothersoftheserpent.blogspot.com and comment on the shows. You can send us ideas. You can tell us we suck.
If you're from Rockwall, you can invite us.
Yeah, you can invite us over.
Hang out.
Tell us to bring our hammocks. We'll hang our hammocks from your trees. And don't worry, we'll probably glad within a day or two. If you guys want to email us, you can email us at brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com for any other communication purposes. And if you guys would be so kind, go to iTunes or TuneIn or Stitcher and give us some reviews, some 5 stars. Tell everybody we're amazing. That would be great. And other than that, I think that's about it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys very much for listening. And
GF1.